ever since you got elected number one councilor in the Cebu City South District, so much has happened, right? Daghan na kayo nangitabo, konsehal, right? Daghan na kayo nangitabo. Number one, of course, COVID, right? Kasi
Yes, sir.
who would have thought nga na COVID-19, right? Of course, recently, the mayor got sick. Now you have been vice mayor. In fact, I think right now, as we speak, you're the current vice mayor of the city. Of course, aside from the local stage, in the global stage, nakadaog na tong mga many medals, Olympics, right? We won our first ever in the history of the Philippines, our first ever gold medal, right? And
Yes.
here in the island, of course, the third bridge is almost done, the Cordova Bridge, and so many things has happened since you got elected number one councilor for Cebu City South back in May 13, 2019. Am I correct? Councilor? Sakto ba atong di?
Yes, May 13, 2019.
Um, my first question for you, Councilor, this is a question that's very close to my heart. Is of all the things that have happened that I mentioned, we are going to talk about them. But first and foremost, how do you feel about the Los Angeles Lakers and their senior citizen team? And nag-reload sila. They got rid of some of the players, and now they got Westbrook, a very divisive player. They also got Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo, Carmelo Anthony, and a few young up-and-coming stars like Nunn and a few other players. But more or less, they're really banking on age, on experience, right? Ikaw, you have been a player for how many decades? Maybe like 20 years, right? You've been a basketball player, and you've been young, and you've also been old playing basketball. How do you feel about the chances of the Los Angeles Lakers? Unsa man nga klaseng how do you call this move sa Los Angeles Lakers? Do you think this will reap them? This will end with a championship, or will this be another disappointment? Kinumdum katong una na si Gary Payton, si Karl Malone, katong Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant nga murag na disappointed yung tagmayo ato kay we thought nga ma-champion sila to, but they got defeated by the Detroit Pistons. So how do you feel about the Lakers' chances now, Konsehal, or Vice Mayor acting?
Okay. Yeah, I remember that 2004, no? And that was the start of the breakup of Shaq and Kobe.
Yes, correct.
Sa imong question okay, so I would favor the new lineup. Yes, napagawas atong mga batanon, and I think with Melo, maka-relax gamay si LeBron. I don't know if he'll do that, pero he'll be having games that he will ihatag niya ang scoring load, and also he can give it to Westbrook, which I think the last 4 or 5 years has been dominating. Well, diba? I mean, really creating for the Washington, Houston, and even Oklahoma. But now having LeBron and Carmelo and Anthony, mas dynamic pa gid ni. So ang chances, tanaw nako, it would be a disappointment if di sila ma-champion, but I'm really looking forward nga naa sila sa finals, and mo na ihuwato na to next June. But I think in the long run it will help really LeBron.
Westbrook, you mentioned one of their biggest acquisitions, if not their biggest acquisition in this particular season. Is a very divisive, polarizing player. Kanisha, see, Westbrook has tried it in many teams, like you said, right? Houston, Oklahoma City Thunder, Houston Rockets, Washington Wizards. Tood, he's a star in each and every one of those teams. Pero murag wa gyud never really reached the finals, or their performance in the playoffs were eliminated the second round or first round. So ingon dili gid siya ingon nga can carry a team by himself, right? So how do you feel about the addition of Westbrook now? Will he still be the same disappointing player that he once was? Although I would hesitate in saying that, because he's been a triple-double machine, right, in all of those teams. But still, the end goal is winning a championship. But that's all the objective of all the NBA teams, or any team for that matter. How do you feel about his style of play mo complement ba ka ni LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Carmelo Anthony and all of those players? Do you think his style of play will be complementary, or will he have to change the way he plays the basketball?
Did you mention disappointing?
Kinsa?
Ikaw, ni-mention ka about Westbrook? Like,
Yeah,
disappointing?
in terms of mga other teams ba?
Yeah.
Hindi siya maabot sa kaning at that level nga they want to, because they Oklahoma City Thunder obviously they had Durant, right?
Okay. First, when he was at Oklahoma with Kevin Durant, bata pa gid sila.
Mm-hmm.
Then he transferred to, I think, Houston.
Houston, yeah. So that's Harden.
Yeah, of course, di ba? And he transferred to Washington Wizards.
Mm.
Di ba? Of course, again, but having a LeBron, Anthony Davis, and the scorer in Carmelo, yes, I would say wala pa gid siya naabot sa deep in the playoffs, but having those two guys and I think dili gyapon usbon gid ang style ni Westbrook, but I would say again it will be beneficial for Dwight Howard, LeBron, kay siya man ay mag-create. I mean, at his age, I think he can still do it, but he doesn't have to do it the whole season good si LeBron. I mean, mao gini times tingay. I mean, I think it's against LeBron nga kanang mo pahuway. Like load, they call it load management, di ba?
Yes.
But having a Westbrook really would be a driving force. Yes, LeBron will still be the number one guy, pero kinahanglan na jud kay batanon kung sa team pa ka kanis Westbrook, bora ni Calvin Abueva, di kapuyan, inana manakit dito, sakit lagi, pero a team needs to have a Calvin Abueva, and mao ni si Westbrook yun, burag dog ba nga in a way. Yes, burag stubborn player, pero different kind of guy nga kinahanglan sa Lakers.
Ang average age sa Lakers, that's why I was kidding around earlier nga murag senior citizens ni ay lang ipang hire sa Lakers karon murag mga kaning returnee, some of them second time, third time. I think Dwight Howard has been 3 times already, right? And Rajon Rondo the second time. So that mura siya mga reunion of sorts ba. My question here is, Don, you played for a basketball team nga medyo you were already playing for the PBA or basketball in general for like maybe more than almost 2 decades. Siguro saan murag medyo dili na you were not the young player that you once were. So maka-relate you gani nga you're at that level of your career nga all you want is maybe win a championship, and you don't really have all of those young kaning that young energy ba nga bago pa kayo, excited pa kayo kasanan. Plus of course your body is not as solid as it once was. Okay, of course time, right? So how do you feel about the strategy how will they let these old timers play, and how will they be effective in spite of their age?
Well, I think they've learned their lessons, like katong panahon nilang Shaq and Kobe and Gary Payton, like sila Karl Malone. I think they were na trabaho gito sila maayo, and knowing this long season there would be stretches of road games nga mas makapahuway ni sila, and I experienced that later on my career. Even practice in hour practice or an hour and a half practice, the most that I can go hard for that practice is 40-45 minutes.
Okay.
And the rest I'm not shooting nako, because they would really prepare you for games, especially back-to-back games and of course ilang strength and conditioning, of course their coaches kibaw na gid na once they see the schedule, kibaw na sila how to go about it, and ganahan gid na sila fresh gid na ilang players come playoff time, kay mao gid na crucial, and those guys that we mentioned willing kay na sila mo sacrifice not to burag ilang ihatag nga diha na lang na responsibility na sa kagay, pero kani kuha na ni sila kanang nana sila sa stage lang, kay dili na sila wa na sila gaapas ba sa individual accolades but of the team, and mo na difference katong time nga bata pa sila Westbrook, sila Durant, sila Harden. Yes, ganahan sila ma-champion, pero they're not in that mindset yet of really what needs to be done for a team to make it deep in the playoffs, especially championship.
Don, how long did you play professionally?
20 years.
20 years. Wow, that's like a Kobe Bryant a
Yes,
number right
sir.
there. Kobe Bryant also played for 20 years in the NBA in one basketball team. Akong pangutana doon is this. Obviously, you were already in the tail end of your beautiful and championship filled and accomplishment filled career. So in the let's say the last 3-4 years, Don, what kaning obvious limitations did you feel kaning unsa man di na kay ka mag-ambak og taas unya paghuman imong describe ko no to us what it feels like for a player to have played basketball for that long. Unsa man imong mindset ana, plus of course knowing your body, what will you do with that knowledge nga dili na kabatanon?
Well, bay, sa paglayat, dili sa panghambog, makalayat gyapon ko,
Okay.
makaabot gyapon ko. Di na lang kay ko makadang, pero makalayat gyapon ko, makadagan gyapon ko. But it's just the recovery really if you play 20-25 minutes that night. It's really hard to practice the next day na bura kag batanon. So the coach would give you shooting lang ka doon or ice, inana ba? And what I do when we play, like for example, if there's a 7 p.m. game, second game in the morning, mag-shooting, you go na, mag-skills, you go by myself. So going to the game, kibawan ako sa akong mga movements, inana, but later parts akong career, ako na nang gipahuway. Wala na ko mag-extra work the morning of those games. Kaya kibaw man ko, mas kinulan fresh ko sa duwa. Pero I already know the most minutes that I can play. But there were times nga, si Coach Alex tanaw gid niya nga needed jud ko sa game, and there was even a time gid nga the whole second half I was there. Kibaw man siya sa akong pace, kibaw man siya nga kanang makontrol na kong duwa bisag wa ko'y bola, and di sa panghambog mas akong well kanang imong pagsabot sa duwa ba, that you know what's going to happen. In fact, naay usa ka time nga wa niya gitawag sa timeout, but I used this nga nag-inbound ang talk and text. Na abi na ko wa napansin ni coach, but what I did is nag-inbound sila, labaw mi or Iguales me to Iguales, so they have the last shot. So what I did, ga-inbound si Ryan Reyes, gatanaw ko sa movements sa mga teams nila, nisud, nigawas ko. Akong gituparan si Ryan Reyes. So the referee called for a delay of the game. But I told some of my teammates kung nakabaw sila, naadya pa dong si Jason Castro, make sure lang kibaw mo asa dapit. So we're able to steal that game. Nidaog me through Calvin Abueva, buzzer beater. Okay, I was able to get the ball, though we have a timeout. Wala ko ni gamit sa timeout. Ako nang gi-release ni Calvin. If mo call kong timeout, basig mahunong pa, and they will be able to strategize defensive game plan. So wala na. But the next day's viewing, ningon siya, this is what Don did. I didn't teach you guys. It's based on experience. He went outside to be called for delay of the game. He did call timeout. So something like that. Mamasanay, in return, you're not physically strong or active, but mentally you're able to approach the game na other mga older players can do. And mo na mahitabo nila LeBron, Carmelo Anthony.
Don, if you were not yet a seasoned player, if you in your first, let's say 2-3 years in professional basketball, would you have thought of that particular play that you mentioned?
Well, dili kay you just like be thinking of your guy, of what to do to stop him, inana ba? And I guess part of it is also na develop anymore. I have older teammates, but I remember katora gyud nga duwa nga observant ako, inana ba? And think, this is the burag kuan lang. Sa tawag nimo?
Automatic lang siya.
Yeah, nigawas ng automatic. But
Okay.
like, flow lang ba? It wasn't planned. It was just flow of the game, and naara sa imong nahuna, and I think based sa kuan na sa kadaghanon na duwa tingali, And kapila na ka nga pwede nga kibaw ka bitaw no ano wa tunog di ba previously.
Don, I often hear the words basketball acumen being mentioned. Kanang murag intelligent kasi mo play basketball. There are players that are intelligent when they play basketball, those that are not. Dili sa man don itulo na nimong basketball acumen nimo or sometimes murag innate yun na siya murag imo nang nature nga murag medyo you're smarter than everybody else. How's that? Because there are, like for example, like you mentioned, LeBron James. He's a very smart player, right? But there are other players as as big as talented as he is, but it doesn't have the basketball acumen that LeBron James has. Unsa man na siya? Do you learn that from experience? And how come nga naiuban nga mga seasoned mga players, but they're not as smart as let's say LeBron James? How is that?
I guess it's the mindset. Some of it is like awareness and also like you care for something really big, which is the team.
Mhm.
Some wouldn't care, like I'm just thinking of myself. I'm just
Okay.
thinking of my individual awards. Then sometimes dili to siya. Yes, they might have abilities nga other normal players don't have, like the mentality to really score and how to be like a beast, different, but on a team concept, diya gina advantage yun si LeBron nana ba, and it's really though his stats are bural yung kanang individual pero he's really thinking of the team, and it shows he's been like that at an early age. So mao na akong gipa-develop sa akong anak nga dong if you're really thinking of the team, you'll be developing something that a culture or kanang ang coach wants you to have, or you wants you to be part of the team because you have this certain culture or thinking that you're always there for the team. Natural man na nga natay personal ambition, personal goals, but when you have a team goal and ma-develop na nimo, and you'll magunahon na jud ka pirmi about what's best for the team, and it goes to shows nga bitaw no, I could have done that, I could have teach that to my teammates nana. So I think ma-develop na nimo, pero it starts with that mindset that kibaw jud ka nga you're part of the team, you're not the team but you're part of the team. I hope
Don,
that helps.
would you admit to us here nga when you were younger you were more selfish, and when you got a little seasoned na like a less selfish guys, is that really a characteristic of a young player? Now, most young players are really think of themselves, and pag human later on in their careers then na sila maka less selfish, muna sila mamasa ng bola, or they have a sort of like a bigger picture when they play the basketball game.
When you mean
Personally,
young, like high school, grade school?
I think like
Okay.
even professionally when you were in your first year in the PBA or CBA.
Okay. Kay numdum jud ko nga di jud ka musikat kung di ka magbinuaya. That term, right? Pero ang akong pagkabuaya is I have to be the most prepared player of the team. Because
Okay.
if somebody wouldn't be able to do their job, I would be there to do that. Mao gyud akong mindset. Like for example, kung buaya ko in a way, ang akong buaya is kinalan I should be the most prepared player in ba. So there would be times, yes, like for example, I wasn't the top scorer sa high school, pero I know that I can be of value to the team. Sa college tingali, because there were a lot of better players, kanumdum ko dili ko first five, nindot kay akong showing the first few games, then gibangko ko, I felt bad inana ba nga naman nindot mga ko inana ba anong gibangko mo ko inana ba, and it challenged you. And as long as you have that mindset, kaabot na nimo sa professional game or kanang level, naa man say kaparehan og level, di ba? Pareha sa nimong mindset, so magkasumpaki gud mo inana ba. But then again, you have this thinking that you're part of the team, and how the only way you can call yourself a great player or a very good player is you're part of a winning culture or a winning team.
That terminology about ball hog, buaya, we hear that a lot, right? In fact, Kobe Bryant was thought to be a ball hog and all that, especially during the early part of his career. Don, how much of being a ball hog or buaya in our vernacular is part of the strategy, and how much of it is really the basketball player taking upon himself to score as many points as he can. And then don't you get called out by your coach, for example? Like, yeah. How does it work? And what part of it is strategy? What part of it is really the player nagbinuaya gud sila basig wala gisugo sa coach si siya? How does that work?
Well, naagi mga tao nga inanay kinaiya binuaya ha, naagi mo na. But some teams needs a buaya.
Oh. Okay.
Like for example, wa may laing scorer, wa may laing makabuhatan na. Di ila yun ang ihatag dito. And usually, if I'm the opposing team, I'm excited to defend that buaya nga player. Okay, if I'm able to stop him or limit him, then I'll be able to do my job and makaingon ko na stop na ko taong pinakabuaya nga player. But honestly speaking, naadyo'y games gyud nga ako, ingnan jud ko nila pag binuaya doon, pag binuaya, pero mugawas gyud akong pagka LeBron. Mugawas gyud akong pagka team player. Yeah. Many times like especially nga ako ang dako nga gibayran or binana for a exhibition game or kanang out of town game inana ba. Mugawas gyud akong pagka team player because you feel fulfillment ba nga makita ka nga nindot ka ang feeling sa imong teammate after the game, like for example di ay wow kaduwag tarong ana ba I always feel bad about that inana ba, though na kinahanglan gyapon nga mo daog pero ipakita nimo nga yes if you do this I can help you be better inana ba. So mugawas ang akong pagka LeBron than Kobe.
LeBron James dili ka Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. This Westbrook character ba, si Westbrook ba, he's really I don't know what part of it is strategy and what part of it is really buaya, because he's been the top scorer of all of the teams that he's played in, a triple-double machine, right? My question here is, Don, how do you control a player like Westbrook in a team? Like, like if na buaya, superstar buaya, for example lang ba, kunya medyo sige-sige siya he always tries to score as many points as he can. For example, how does a coach, how does a team behave if naay buhaya nga player? Unsa man bala siya pawaon sa coach or unsa man, like how does it work?
Okay lang mo set lang ko example sa high school when I was part of the coaching staff katong first time nga niduwa diri si I sa Cebu, din na champion sila. And na may mga players gyud nga buaya inana ba din amo basta to this will show him video amo lang gingnan nga kani not all the time you will be the one scoring but you'll be the one help creating kay ka-atake nimo double teaman gyud ka inana. And fortunate lang ko kay kani mga bata ganahan magid sila nga they make a name for themselves. Maabot sila sa time nga sila may number 1 player nga pilion for college inana ba. And mao na akong gi-input sa akong anak on his second year nga he could have been buaya pero he chose to be a team player, and there would be times nga siya sa ingnon sa coach nga magbinuaya inana and because he was able to build that good relationship sa iyang mga teammates. And para nako si Ice gud ang pangutanon ko unsay pinaka nindot nga qualities ni Ice as a player is how he relates with his teammates. Ballboy pa na or unsa pa na siya mataas or makuan pa na nga player is maayo gid siya. So going back to your question is we always show them videos nga how they can always be better. But then again, naamagay sila is certain skills kinahanglan sa gid sila kaya some teams really want and mauna siya inana. And then there are a lot of professional teams kanina that exactly is a Westbrook kay na may ubang team nga kinahanglan di siya magbinaya.
Okay, so you think that this Lakers basketball team is a good team, but are they good enough to beat the New Jersey Nets? Are they good enough to defeat Kevin Durant, Irving, and Harden? What do you think?
Well, listen na ha. Listen na kay Harden. Mao sa naong itanaw. I think few months from now, hopefully mo na to tanawon. Nets, Lakers, sinana ba? But kisa pa may nawa mas ni Andre Jordan sa Kwan? Nets?
Okay, kuha nila si Kwan. Si, what's his name? Aldridge. Nibalik si Aldridge. Remember that guy from the Spurs? LaMarcus. Yeah, he's back.
Marcos, naa si Blake Griffin, kinsa pa man,
Yeah, and a host of other players. Basta kay ang ilang top, kalang first five nila, Griffin, Aldridge, and the big three. Muna sila more or less are the first five of the New Jersey Nets. Of course, last year, nakaduwa si Harden Umayo. Nakaduwa to, pero medyo it was a haphazard. Murag he forced siya or he wasn't really into it, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that? Imo, if you had to bet without a single game played yet, who would you put your money on? The Lakers or the Nets?
Karon nga kuan, na ako sa
Before the
Nets.
game, yeah.
Na ako sa Nets.
Huh?
It would change during the course of the season.
Of course, yeah. Of course. But right now, just on paper ba, tanaw nimo?
Well, just on paper, Lakers.